Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and welcome to another episode of Poland Daily History. Today we are in the Praga district of Warsaw, in front of a statue of one of the great war heroes of the Polish Bolshevik War, Father Ignacy Skorupka. This statue is located right here, as he served this very church, and it was from here that his unit set out to confront the enemy. In early August of 1920, the Soviet Red Army was closing in on Warsaw. They were only a couple hundred kilometers away from linking arms with the Soviet revolutionary forces of Germany, Austria, and Hungary. Join us as we explore the Polish Bolshevik War, the Battle of Warsaw, and its impact on all of Europe. During the Polish Bolshevik War, Poland did not fight alone. They have allies from foreign countries, and I was wondering who were the Polish allies and how did they achieve in helping Poland out?
Oczywiście wszystkie sąsiednie państwa zorientowały się, że to nie jest tylko walka o Polskę, że to jest w ogóle walka o Europę.
Of course, all neighboring countries realized that it was not only a fight for Poland, that it was a fight for Europe, and the Bolsheviks did not hide it. Europe was to be conquered at all costs, at the cost of Poland. They were to enter Germany, maybe even France. Hence, mobilization around Poland was huge, and we can divide it into three zones. The first were the nations of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as if the first Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was resurrected. In addition to Poles, the allies in the fight and in the Brotherhood of Arms were the Ukrainians, who, under the command of General Marko Bezruczko, defended the Polish city of Zamość. Petlura fought in the south, along the Dniester River. They would almost have reached Odessa if the conditions were suitable. There was also a branch of independent Belarusians under the leadership of Bułak Balachowicz. There were 2,000 of them who also liberated a large part of Belarus, and when the truce was concluded, they set off to liberate the rest of Belarus, establishing the Slut Republic, existing almost half a year east of Poland. Finally, there were Lithuanian Belarusian regiments composed of Poles living around Vilnius on the border of Lithuania and Belarus under the command of General Żeligowski. However, among the countries that surrounded Poland, two deserve special recognition. These are the Hungarians, who survived the Bolshevik Revolution and knew well what would happen if the Bolsheviks returned here. They would simply be murdered and would offer the Poles fighting all the armament that the Hungarian state had at its disposal at that moment. 4 powerful trains came through Romania because unfortunately Czechoslovakia behaved hostile and did not let them pass, and they ultimately reached Warsaw. In the event that the Bolsheviks were to enter Warsaw, this would serve the Polish army as an ammunition reserve. Ultimately, what the Hungarians gave us was very necessary because it suited the Polish weapons we had after the Germans and Austrians. It was used in the Battle of Niemen River. The second country was Latvia, which was well aware that when Poland was defeated, Latvia would also come to an end and, as it could, also supported Poles. This also manifested itself in the fact that the Latvians were able to occupy the entire Powiat on the other side of the Daugava River and save it from the Bolshevik occupation. When the Polish army arrived after the victory, they gave the Powiat away to Poles with no need of negotiations. We have kept the borders with Latvia intact since the 16th century. They were a real friend. Then we had a third group, France, which is very important here because 6 trains with ammunition came daily from France and through Italy, Yugoslavia, Romania and the eastern borderlands, i.e. Stanisławów, Lviv, and reached the Polish fronts one by one. Unfortunately, Czechoslovakia belonged to silent enemies. They refused transit of both weapons and volunteers. Ultimately, for example, the Hungarian Cavalry Brigade wanted to help Poland and waited for permission near Košice. Unfortunately, the Czechs did not grant it, and the brigade could not come. Then it was not needed anymore, but moral support was enormous at that time.
Brygada nie mogła dojść. No, potem już nie była potrzebna, ale wsparcie moralne było wtedy ogromne.
So during the war, Poland did have its allies, but I can imagine there would also be countries that are not so friendly. I was wondering who were the more hostile nations?
Tak, no przede wszystkim wrogie były dawne państwa zaborcze. Próba zakupienia broni w Austrii zakończyła się niepowodzeniem.
Yes, the enemies were largely all the former partitioning powers. Attempts to buy weapons in Austria were unsuccessful, and Germany would almost have entered the war had it not been for Marshal Foch, who had put the 3 million French army, after a terrible 4-year war, on standby and said, "One move from the Germans and we are entering the basin of Western Germany." This eventually stopped the Germans and allowed the Poles to win. The Bolsheviks, however, did everything to disrupt Poles. They would create a terrible image of Poles for their neighbors. Even the Romanians tried to do so, but they did not come in handy. And, for example, when they occupied the area which belonged to Germany before the war, they brought the former mayor from the area of Masuria, and he was ordered to be the new mayor on behalf of Bolshevik Germany. It was the city of Działdowo. Finally, the third country, which was also hostile toward Poland, though not quite, this was a very complicated situation, was primarily Lithuania, with which we had disputed Vilnius. Lithuanians claimed some historical grievances against Vilnius, while Vilnius was mostly inhabited by Poles, 60%, while the amount of Lithuanian inhabitants was close to 2 to 3%. In connection with this, a historical conflict arose, a Polish-Lithuanian one. Some Lithuanians were persuaded by the Bolshevik side to take over Vilnius. Of course, it was a trap. Lithuanians were to obtain Vilnius together with the Soviet army, and this army would calmly take over the rest of the country. This did take place in 1940. However, the Bolsheviks were conquered on the Vistula and then on the Niemen withdrew, giving Vilnius to Lithuanians. A problem arose: how to restore Vilnius to Poland. There were no contacts. Lithuanians were not able to make any more sensible conversations. Poles were even ready to leave Vilnius on the condition of some union, restoration of some community with Lithuania, so that the Poles would be at least able to be a little protected. Lithuania did not agree, and then Marshal Piłsudski gave his General Żeligowski, bearing a half-Lithuanian name, to rebel and take Vilnius. This happened, moreover, on October 8, 1920. The Marshal rebelled, and the day after he announced the creation of Central Lithuania. Why Central? Because Samogitian Lithuania, the one that spoke Lithuanian, was called Western, Lithuania that spoke Polish was called Central, and Lithuania that spoke Belarusian, with Belarusian Minsk, or Lithuanian, was called Eastern Lithuania. It was a mix of historical and ethnographic terms. In this way, the state of Central Lithuania existed for 3 years, and finally, by a resolution of its own parliament, was incorporated into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the then Second Polish Republic, which was made up of Poland and Central Lithuania, began to gain recognition, and subsequently became the Vilnius province. Only this moment ended the fight for borders. In 1922, Poland returns to Upper Silesia after 700 years. We lost it in the 14th century to the Kingdom of Bohemia. Vilnius becomes part of the Second Polish Republic, and until 1923, there was a war between Lithuania and a tiny commune Warwiszki, in which Poles were resisting the Lithuanian army. Eventually, the people of this village left it to the Lithuanians. It was on the other side of the Niemen, and having crossed to the other side of Poland, ended activities that were to save Poland's borders. Gdańsk remained as a free city outside Poland. Kresy and Cieszyn Silesia remained in Poland, where 120,000 Poles lived.
Poza Polską pozostało Gdańsk jako wolne miasto, pozostały Kresy, no i pozostał Śląsk Cieszyński, gdzie mieszkało 120 000 Polaków.
The Battle of Warsaw was the decisive point of the Polish-Bolshevik War. It saved Europe from an imminent communist invasion and gave Poland a vital 20 years as an independent state before the outbreak of the Second World War. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Now see you next time on Poland Daily History.